Learn how to use Elixir and Phoenix to validate forms on the client and server side. No JavaScript code needed. Thanks to the LiveView library, Tailwind CSS is going to be used for the user interface. And this is the application that we are going to be building. Just a basic form. We are going to simulate like an account, a sign up form, and this is gonna give us validations on the client and the server side based on the validation messages that we have on our schema. For example, if we don't have a valid email, it's gonna say this message. So once we provide a valid email, it's just gonna be green. Same here. And on the password, also we need an uppercase letter, I'm sorry, and a character, and then it's gonna be green. We can save the form and the account is gonna be created. It's just a simple form, but you can learn how to validate forms with Phoenix LiveView server and client side. Let's start by creating a new Phoenix project from scratch inside our desired directory. I'm using Visual Studio Code. I will open up a new terminal here. Move it to a window, and then I will type in this command to create a new project. We're not going to use the dashboard, the live dashboard, so we're going to say no to that. Let's just change directory immediately to the new created project. Let's hit enter. Enter again, and we are going to wait until everything is fetched, installed, and created for us. Now that our project was created, then let's open up our new project folder. With our project open on our editor, then let's go ahead and add and configure Tailwind CSS. First, let's go to your browser and go to this website, the package manager for the Elixir ecosystem, and search for Tailwind. Click here, and then we're gonna grab the latest version here. Let's copy, get back to our editor. Let's add it over here. Let's save it. Also at the bottom here, let's just add this alias to the deployment. Let's save it. And now let's add our configuration by going to the config folder, to the config file, and over here let's add our configuration for Tailwind. We're gonna use the latest version, that is gonna be 3.0.23. That's going to be the latest version at the moment of this tutorial. If you go to the official Tailwind CSS website. Now we're gonna add this argument here. By the way, instead of just looking at me like just typing in this configuration. If you go to the website, back to the website of the official Tailwind package, and you go to the GitHub page, to the documentation, you can just grab the configuration over here and just copy and paste, so you don't have to type it in manually. And now here, let's just type in the 23, save it. Now under the dev config file, we have to add a watcher here. So let's get back to our browser, and we're gonna need this watcher. Let's get back to our editor, save it. And now let's open up a terminal. Let's move it to a window here. And we're going to fetch our dependencies, our new dependencies, and install Tailwind CSS. Hit enter. Let's wait until everything is fetched and installed. It's going to compile files, then it's going to download the Tailwind version. Okay, with that done, now let's go ahead and run the test just to make sure that everything works fine. Let's going to compile our files first. This is just to make sure that there is no errors or any mistakes, because after this we are going to start working on our project. Okay, so the tests are working, so there's no errors or mistakes, so we will not need this file. Let's just close it, and this one also. And let's close the mix file for now. Let's make sure that everything was installed correctly. We have that configuration file here for Tailwind. You see that it removed the CSS line here. Okay, that's good. And we have the imports here. And here's the Tailwind file. So everything is just working fine. Let's open the router file so we can add our routes. Let's just close this file so we won't need it. Now under the lead file folder, under this folder we can find the router file, and we're going to change the root file to a live route. And we won't need this. It's gonna be called page live. We save it. Then let's open under the templates folder, layout. Let's open the root file. Just get more space here. And this nav that is on the header, we won't need this, so let's just remove it. And let's add a background color to our body. Let's save it. And under this file, the live file, we're gonna add to our container this class. We're gonna add the max weight to B4. And for our alert info here, we're gonna make a flex. Then you save it. And now under this folder, let's add another folder. It's gonna be called live, and under that folder we're gonna add two files. The first one is gonna be pagelive.ex, and the second one pagelive.html.heax. And here we're gonna define our module. And this is going to use the LiveView. We're gonna save it, and just to test it out here, let's just create an h1 tag with a text color of blue 500. Just say home. Save it. And now let's go ahead and run our server by doing this. It's going to compile our files. Okay, apparently, yes, I know what's the mistake. I have to restart my Postgres SQL database. So let's just okay, now if I go ahead and run the server again, it's gonna be on this location there, localhost 4000. So let's just copy this. I didn't run the migration, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do it right here on the browser. If I click this button, there, here is our, let's just make it white because you can barely see that. If we go to our, let's close this, we don't need it, the root, let's just make this white. If we go to our browser, there you can see it better. So that's working. Now let's go back to our editor and let's add our template. First, what we're gonna do is add a section here, and the class is going to be a margin from the top 24. The width is gonna be 1/2. We're gonna add a shadow. So we're gonna make a flex column, and we're gonna center the items and justify center also. The margin on the x-axis is gonna be auto. We're gonna give it a padding of 6 and background white. Let's close the section. Now we're gonna add our heading here. It's gonna be an H1 with the class of text 4XL The font is gonna be bold, italic, and text color is gonna be gray 700. We're gonna be create account. Let's close the H1. And here we're going to add a paragraph with the class. The text color is going to be gray 500. The font semi-bold and text large. The margin from the top of 6, and we're going to center the text. And we're going to give it a padding on the x-axis of 8. Let's close it. And what we're gonna have here is just sign up to get an account. And here we're gonna add another paragraph with the class of text small padding x10. We're gonna center the text. We're gonna give it a margin from the top of 6. The color is gonna be gray 400. The font is gonna be semi-bold. Just get more space here. Well, let's just close this for the moment. And this is just gonna say, by signing up, you agree to our terms, data policy, and cookies policy and cookies policy. This is just simulating like a sign-up form. And between these two paragraphs here, we're gonna add our form. So this is the way that you add a form on Phoenix. We're gonna say let. For the F, it's gonna be the form. For in the meantime, let's just use user. Just for demonstration purposes, we're just laying out our template. The ID is gonna be user form, and the class is gonna be flex column space. Y is gonna be 4, and the width is gonna be 4, and the padding x6. Let's close our form. This is how you close the form. Just give it a little bit of space here. And inside our form, we're gonna have 4 different divs with a class of flex column. Let's close it. These are gonna be 3 different divs with the same class, and the last one is just gonna be just a div with no class. So inside our div that doesn't have a class, we're gonna have a sign up button or a submit button with the text of sign up. sign up. We're gonna say we're gonna disable once we submit the button. It's gonna say saving, and the class is gonna be width full. The padding wide is gonna be 2. The border none, and a shadow rounded, font semi-bold, the text small, text color gray 50, and the hover is gonna be background violet 600, and the background is gonna be violet 500. If we save it and we go to our browser, or it's taking form now here. So now let's just add our inputs. The first input, well, before we do that, let's just add the label. This is gonna be for the email. The class is gonna be text gray 400. Now the input is gonna be an email input. The autocomplete is gonna be turned off, and the class is gonna be rounded, shadow small, on focus, the ring opacity is gonna be 50, and the border gray 300, and on focus the border is gonna be gray 900, and also on focus the ring is gonna be gray 900. And for the next input here, it's gonna be the label is gonna be for our username, and the class also the same one. The color is gonna be the text color 400. It's gonna be a text input. For our username, also the autocomplete is gonna be turned off, and the class is just going to be the same class. So let's just copy and paste this one. Also, let's add the error tag here. This is for the email. This is going to be for our username. And now what we have to do is just copy and paste this username input. It's gonna be just the same, just the name. We're just gonna change the name here. We're gonna make a password, and password, and this input is gonna be a password input. But the class is gonna be just the same. If we save it, we made a mistake. Okay, there's it. We have to do the column here. Just save it and now it should work. Okay, we made another one. Oh, here also we made a mistake here. Now it should work. On line 17 also here. Let me see, we need a comma here. Okay, now it works. So this is just going to be the template that we're going to use. It's not going to work now because we haven't done anything yet. Let's go back to our editor and let's go ahead and add tests to our application. So under our test folder, under this folder, the form validator web, we're going to add a new folder called live. Inside that folder, we're going to add a file, and that file is going to be called page live test.exs. I'm going to hit enter, and let's define our module. It's going to be form validator web. That page live test, and we're going to use the form validator web concase, and we're going to import Phoenix LiveView test, and let's define some attributes here. So we can run our test. This is to create a new account. Just pick a random email address, and the password is going to be just password. And for invalid attributes, we're just gonna say nil to everything. I'm sorry, nil. And email also nil, and password. Now our first test, just gonna check that it says create account on the page. That's going to be the page, the form title. We're gonna use the connection, and we are going to pattern match. We're not going to use a page path. We're going to use the HTML. Let's say equals. That's how we are going to grab the content of that page live view. Let's just say assert HTML create account. Okay, now our second test, this is going to check that it saves a new account. Again, we're going to use the connection. We're going to pattern match again. We're not going to use the HTML here, we won't need it, so let's just omit that. Okay, now we're going to assert on the page live we're gonna grab the form. The ID is user form. And we're gonna send a user with invalid attributes. So this should render on the page that it can be blank. Okay, now we've got a pattern match again. We're not going to use the page live. We're going to use the HTML, and this time it's going to be equals to page live. We already have it, and the form that is user form. The user, we're gonna send the attributes. We're gonna use the render submit to submit the form with the attributes. And we're gonna follow the redirect to the same path. And now we're going to assert that the HTML it has the account created successfully. Now for the next test is going to be that validates the email. We're gonna test the validations now. We're gonna again use the connection. And let's just define an invalid email. This just not gonna have the @ sign, so this is going to be an invalid email. So now let's pattern match. And let's assert that the page live that the form is okay. We're gonna send that invalid email. And then we're going to render the change on the page. We're gonna verify that it displays the error message. Now let's validate the username. Let's pattern match again. Let's just copy and paste because we just wasting time just typing it in every time. So just copy and paste. Now let's assert we're gonna send a username here. Just a random letter. And now let's assert that the form well, here on the render change, let's change the message that we should have back or display on the page. And now let's do the same again, but this time the error message is going to be different. This is the only characters that we are going to allow, and we are only going to allow letters and numbers for the username. Now let's copy and paste these tests, and this time we're going to validate the password. Everything should be the same, but now instead of a username we are going to send a password. Here I just put a dot, and the message that should be displayed here, it should be 6. Well, it's the same, so let's just change the 6. Here let's say this. Now let's copy and paste. We can do another assertion. The assertion that we are going to do here is going to be at least one uppercase character. And let's do another assertion. This time it's going to be at least one digit or punctuation. Okay, that should be it for our test. So let's just save this file. Let's go to our terminal. Let's close the router. We won't use this router. Let's go to a terminal. Let's just get out of the server and let's run the test. Of course it should fail because we haven't done anything. Okay, I did a mistake. Okay, I forgot to put web here. This validator web. Now it should work. It's going to compile the files. Okay, that's why I wanted to see if I have any syntax error. So on line 29 I have an error, so let's just check that error. Yes, I forgot a comma here. Now let's save it. Let's get back to our terminal. Let's run the test. Oh yes, that's exactly what I want to see, that the tests are failing. Because we haven't created the LiveView functions yet to handle the form. So yes, the only one that is passing that is green is this one, create account, because we have the LiveView just displaying our template. So that's the only one that is passing. Then the other ones are failing. And now let's go ahead and create an account context so we can save data to our database. So let's go to our terminal here. Let's type in the following command. We're going to use the Phoenix generator to generate a context. It's going to be called accounts. The schema is going to be user, the database name, the users. We're going to have an email string, a username string, and a password string. Let's hit enter. Now that everything is generated, let's do mix ecto.migrate to run our migration. Okay, so we did our migration, and now let's run our server for the moment. Let's go ahead and open under the form validator folder. We have our account context here, and let's open the user schema, and let's add some validations to our schema. First, let's validate the email. So let's just type in this function, and now let's make our function validate email. I'm gonna take the change set, and let's validate the format of email with a regular expression. Now, this is a little bit complicated. I'm not really an expert on regular expressions. I don't think that nobody is. I think that nobody is an expert on regular expressions. If you're ever stuck on a regular expression, you can just Google it, honestly. Okay, so what this is gonna do is to validate that the email has an @ sign and no spaces. Now let's validate the length of email again. The max is going to be 160. now let's validate our username. Let's validate the format. It's going to be username. And let's validate again with another regular expression. This time we're just trying to make sure that the username is alphanumeric and the only characters is going to be underscore, a dot, and a hyphen. Those are going to be the only characters allowed or signs allowed. And this is going to be the message. Let's just copy and paste the same message that we have on our test over here. If you go to our test, let's just copy and paste the string. That's going to be our message. And for our, I think I made a mistake here. No, that's okay. For our email message, let's just copy and paste also the string, just to make sure that it gives us the right error and our test passes. Now here on our username, let's validate the length. The minimum is gonna be 5 and the max is gonna be 30. And now let's validate the password. So the first thing that we're going to validate is the length. The minimum is going to be 6, the max 80. Then we're going to validate the format. I'm going to use another regular expression here. This time just ABC, just to make sure that it has at least one lowercase letter. Let's just copy and paste the error over here on our test. At least should have at least one lowercase character. Just copy the whole string. So say message. This is inside here. Say message with the string, and also let's copy and paste the string for this message. There should be at least 6 characters for when we check for the maximum and minimum. Well, that's going to be done automatically for us by Ecto, so we don't have to explicitly say what is the message here, because we're just going to say it for us automatically. And then let's validate the format again. Let's use a regular expression. This time let's check for capital letters. And the message, let's just copy and paste this string, at least one uppercase character, that's the message. And now lastly, let's just validate the format again, and this time it's a little bit more complicated regular expression. We're gonna check for all these symbols. So gonna be the symbols allow and numbers. If it doesn't have any of those symbols or a number, then we're gonna display this message here, that is at least one digit or punctuation character. Let's copy the string and let's just paste it here. Now let's save it. I think we made a mistake here. With the validate password. Oh, I forgot the message here. Okay, now let's save it. Yes, now we don't have any errors. Now that we have our validations for schema, and let's go ahead and open our LiveView, and let's add first we're gonna need to alias this the accounts, and the schema, and then let's add the mount function. We're gonna set the chain set, let's just say okay, and let's assign to the socket the chain set. And let's save it. Also, let's add our handle event function for the validation. We're gonna use the user params. Let's just get more space here. Okay, so let's say chain set. use the account change user. Let's pass in the params, user params, and let's put the action to the map. It's gonna be validate. Now let's say no reply, and let's assign to the socket the change set again. Now let's save it, and now let's go to our template, and on our form we're gonna instead of saying user here, let's go and say change set, and let's add this binding, the Phoenix change bind. It's gonna be validate, and let's save it. And now what we need to do, because if we go to our web page here and we try to, let's just refresh the page. I think our server is not running, so let's go back to our terminal. Yes, the server is not running. Let's just run the server again, and we have a problem. Okay, I forgot to say mix here. Now it should run. Okay, let's go to our browser here. Let's refresh the page. And yes, we made a mistake. Let's go. Let's go to our user schema. Yes, and here on our validate username function, I have a typo here. Let's save it. Now let's go back to our browser and still, okay, name. Okay, now we, so as you can see, it's doing the validation. It's doing it live. We're not using any JavaScript. The page is not refreshing to do the validation, but the error messages here, they're not on the right place. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our editor here, and we are going to open under the views folder the error helpers file, and we have a special error tag function here that is the one that displays the errors, and we are going to add another argument here that's going to be the class, and by default the class is going to be invalid feedback. So here on the class, instead of using the invalid feedback class that it was by default, we're gonna get the keyword class. We're gonna get that value from the form, from this variable here. So let's save it. And now if we go to our template, we can add a class to this error tag here. It's going to be the same one for all of the tags. So it's going to be a text red 700 and the text is going to be small. Let's copy and paste the same class for each tag. Let's save it and let's go back to our browser. And now let's see, we have a mistake. Let's go to our terminal. Let's see what is the mistake. Go back to our browser. Let's refresh the page. Okay, let me go back. See what's happening. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I have to say class on each input. I'm sorry, on each tag. Okay, now it should work. Let's save it. Let's go back to our browser and there you have it, displaying our errors. So if we don't have an @ sign on our email, it's just going to display our errors. Once we fix the error, then it's not going to display anything. But and let's also add another thing. We want this border here, instead of being black or gray, let's make the border green once we pass the validation. So let's go back to our editor and let's go to our error helpers and let's add another function. We're gonna call this function error ring. We're gonna take the form and the field and we're gonna pattern match with the width. The width keyword, we're gonna say with validate f that source that action. If it is the action is validated on the form, then we're gonna make a case. We're gonna fetch the errors from the field, and if it is okay, we're not going to use the result. Then we're gonna apply this border. It's gonna be red 700 focus border red 700 and the focus green red 700. Now if we have an error, it should be just error. If we have an error, we're gonna say border green 500 and focus border green 500 and focus green 500. Okay, that should do it for the case. Else, this is going to be the default for everything else. That is if the action is not validate. Then we're just going to say border. Let's just copy and paste this one, border gray 300 focus border gray 900 and focus green gray 900. It's gonna be for every input. Let's just cut this and instead let's use our new function. We're gonna pass the form here. and the field. This one is the email. Let's go to our error helper here. Let's add the class. Let's save it. Let's copy and paste this function. Let's remove the class, all this class, add the function, remove it, and add the function. Let's save it. And now if we go okay, I have to change the field, username and password. Let's save it. We still have an error. Okay, erroring. Yes, erroring. Save it. Now it should work. Erroring. Okay, now yes, now it's working. Still here. Okay, now let's go to our browser. Let's type it in. Now if we successful, a valid email is green. Here on the password, if it is successful, it's green also. If we just go back, it's gonna be red. So that should do it for now. Now the only thing that is left to do is the save function. So let's go back to our editor, and on our form let's add a Phoenix submit. That is going to be save. Let's save it. Let's go back to our LiveView and let's add our save function and the handle event. It's going to be save. We're going to use the params, the user params. And the socket. We're going to do a case on accounts that create user. I'm going to send the user params. If it is okay, we're not going to use the user. We're going to say no reply. Socket. And we're going to put a flash message. It's going to be info account created successfully. And we're going to redirect to the same path. And if we have an error, just going to use the ecto that change set. We're going to say no reply. We are going to assign to the socket the change set. Let's save it. And if we go back to our browser and let's just save a valid user, and we have an error. Okay, I forgot this to close our map here. Let's save it. And we still have a mistake here. Oh, it's over here. Let's just... Okay, now it should work. Let's save it, and as you can see, our user was saved successfully. If we go to our terminal, if we go to the bottom, we can see that the user was inserted successfully here. But I think that we made a mistake. Let's save another user. Okay, yes, we don't have any problems. It was successfully inserted. If we refresh, yeah, there's no problems. Now if we go back and let's run the test. And we have a couple of errors here. Well, let's remove the S here. Made a mistake. That's a typo here. And here. Okay, now let's save it. Let's run the test again. We have 2 failures now. So if we go back to our test, I'm saying username, and let's make a space here. Let's make sure that on our schema we have the same error. Okay, that should work. Let's copy and paste again the message. Let's make sure that it's the same one. Save it. Let's make sure that this regular expression is right. Let's go back. Okay, so we made a mistake here. The value that we should pass should be this one to make this test pass. So if we go back and we run the test again, we should only have one error. Yes, we only have one error left. So on line 22, saves new account. We forgot the semicolon here. If we go back, and we run the test, we still have the problem. Okay, so we are not doing render change here. Now it should work. Account created successfully. That's the same. Task saves no account 22. So let's go to our schema. Not to our live view. Let's see. Let's copy and paste the error to make sure that it's the same one. Let's go back. And now our tests are passing. Yes, that should be it. So that is it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We added Tailwind CSS to our Phoenix application, and we went to the steps of handling forms, validations on the server and side, and client side without the need of JavaScript, using the Phoenix change Vine events, and customizing the error helpers functions for a template when errors on our forms. So we have these validations for our form. If you want to join the Elixir army and get more Elixir content, visit the website elixirprogrammer.com.